Today I'm going to introduce you to my 6-ingredient Aroid soil mixture that I use for all my Monsteras. Now this video comes at a very opportune time because I've just chopped and propped one of my beautiful Monstera elbows, and while it's currently air drying so that it can callus over, I need to put together a beautiful chunky soil mixture so that I can quickly pot it up and settle it down into its new home. And these 6 ingredients ensure that your Monsteras or tropical indoor plant have plenty of air circulation, it's not too dense, and has enough water retention to keep it happy between your waterings. So I'm going to quickly introduce you to the 6 ingredients that I use and explain to you the role that they play in this chunky Aroid soil mixture. Okay, so the first ingredient that I want to talk to you about is one ingredient that I find is essential for an Aroid mixture, and that is orchid bark. Now the orchid bark that I have here is actually pre-mixed with a little bit of soil. Using just dry, straight orchid bark is still perfectly fine, but I like to use this one because I like to include a little bit of soil in my mixtures. So this one's already pre-made, so it's a win-win for me. Now orchid bark is essential in an Aroid mixture because orchid bark creates a chunkiness in the soil that allows aeration and oxygen to circulate around the roots. It also ensures that the soil mixture that you're planting your Aroids in isn't too dense, and it reduces the potential for root rot. Now my personal preference is to use a medium grade orchid bark, which allows for these bigger chunks. You can use smaller orchid bark pieces, but I find that the medium grade is ideal for my Aroids. And the next ingredient that I like to include in my mixture are these guys. Those of you who do hydroponics or semi-hydroponics will know that these are LECA balls, L-E-C-A. Now LECA is essentially lightweight clay balls which are cooked at an intense heat, and it forms these little balls that have air pockets inside of them. Now I like to include LECA in my Aroid mixtures because, like orchid bark, it is chunky. Again, it'll allow air to circulate through the soil mixture. But the property that makes LECA different to orchid bark is that it can actually retain a bit more water. And if you've been around the indoor plant space long enough, you'll know that water retention in your soil mixture is extremely important. Otherwise, you're going to be watering your plants every other day, which isn't practical. Now, the next ingredient that I like to include is perlite. Now, perlite is an extremely light material. It again helps to keep the soil mixtures light and airy. I think you can see there's a bit of a theme going on with all the ingredients. But again, it also has abilities to retain water, which is why I like to include it in this mixture. Another ingredient that I love to add to my Aroid mixtures is sphagnum moss. Now the primary purpose that I include sphagnum moss in my Aroid mixtures is water retention. Now this stuff is perfect for holding water and retaining water, just enough to keep your plants hydrated. Now I've pre-moistened this sphagnum moss, and the best way to hydrate moss is to soak it in water and just wring it out like a sponge. Peat moss will also do the same thing, but my personal preference is for sphagnum moss. And the 5th ingredient that I'm going to introduce you to is my personal favorite ingredient to use in all my indoor plant soils, because it is the most natural and organic material that you can get out there. And it is worm castings. When I know I'm about to make some soil, I don't feed my worm towers because I want all the worms to disappear so I don't pull them out when I'm harvesting the castings. And I can't actually see any of them. Prime opportunity to take some of these worm castings without taking out the key stars, the worms. Oh, there we go. We can see we've got some worms in here. Now what I want to do is put them into the container, harvest as much as I need. There you go, you can see all the worms there. So that I don't take these guys away from their home, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up this container and I'll leave them out in the sunlight. And what the worms are going to do is they're all going to naturally shy away from the light, and they're going to dig themselves all the way down to the bottom. It's now been about 20-25 minutes since I harvested it from my worm tower, and you can see there are no worms on the top. Now all the worms have tunneled their way down to the bottom, and I'll be free to be able to just scrape off the top half of this container to include in my soil mixture, and then I'll return the worms back into their home in the garden. Now these worms have broken down all the food scraps that I've been feeding them. They've turned them into this beautiful humus, nutrient-rich material, which all plants love to feed off. And the advantage of using worm castings as a natural fertilizer is that it's not going to be too strong, it's not going to risk burning your plant, and it's a neutral material. It's not acidic, it's not alkaline, pretty much the Goldilocks of all plant food. And the final ingredient that I like to use is horticultural charcoal. And I love including horticultural charcoal in my Aroid mixtures because it has antibacterial property, especially during your waterings. It'll flush out all the nasties and it just helps to keep your soil nice and clean. And again, in this Aroid mixture, I'm using a medium to small grade horticultural charcoal here, which will keep it nice and airy again. We always seem to be coming back to that light and airy theme, which is exactly the type of soil you want for all your Monsteras. Now for those who haven't made an Aroid mixture before, I simply use a part system, which is equal parts of each ingredient here. So simply get yourself a container, whether it be a small pot or a cup, and scoop out the same amount and put it into a container where you can just mix it up thoroughly. I've been doing this mixture for quite a while, so I just usually like to freestyle it and just add it in. And because I've been doing this for a while, I have a good idea of the consistency that I'm after and then adjust towards the end. So the first ingredient I'm going to put in is my worm castings. All the worms have now tunneled their way down to the bottom. There will still be a few up the top, but the benefit of using a large container to mix this in is that I'll be able to spread it out and make sure that I collect all the worms and return them back into their worm tunnel. So let's harvest our worm casting. There you can see there's a little worm there, but essentially we've got worm-free worm castings all on the top. So you can see all the worms there. Beautiful, productive worms, all on the bottom. All we have in here is just worm castings now. You can see there's no worms in there, which is fantastic. Now, the next thing I'm going to add in is a bit of orchid bark, some LECA, Perlite. So just be careful of this stuff. There is a lot of dust perlite gives off, so wear a face mask or just try not to disturb it too much. You can see. Horticultural charcoal. And the last ingredient that I'm going to add into this mixture is the sphagnum moss. Now all you have to simply do is mix it together so that it's a consistent mixture. So hopefully you can see here, this soil mixture is probably a bit too light and chunky for my liking. What I'm thinking is I'm going to add in a bit more worm castings just to give this soil mixture a little bit more density. And there you go, a wonderfully chunky, airy Aroid mixture that is perfect for all your tropical indoor plants. Now I'm going to be using this mixture to pot up my Monstera elbow cutting that I just chopped and propped. If you want to catch that episode, make sure you like and subscribe to the Garden Benchtop YouTube channel and hit that bell so you'll be notified when we release that video. Thanks for watching and go get your hands dirty. See ya!